So this next one, if voting changed anything, they'd make it illegal, right? And this is generally a quote that is used as a rallying call against electoralism, often by anarchists, which is unsurprising, given it's coming from Emma Goldman, an anarchist. But one thing I've always really liked about this quote is that it's prophetic, and it showed an understanding of history. While this may seem like a condemnation, and I'm sure it was coming from her, it's also a statement of fact. When voting has threatened to actually change things, they make it illegal, right? A key example that even Emma Goldman would have, was around for would be, after the Civil War, right? We saw a brief flash of Black representation in the South. And then all of a sudden rules changed. Poll taxes came in, Jim Crow came in, tests that you had to take, literacy tests came in, and they actually did manage to make it illegal to vote. And we see it even in modern times, right? Like in 2020, the Democrats in New York used COVID as cover to hide a bill that tripled the amount of signatures it took to get on the ballot as a third party, right? They didn't make it illegal. They just made it de facto impossible, right? They made it, they knew they couldn't come right out and say, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, off the ballot, you can't run anymore, right? That wouldn't, even in what the laughable thing that we call democracy here in the US, that wouldn't quite fly. What they can do, and what even the Supreme Court has supported, is make it extremely hard for us to get on the ballot, right? And so after seeing successes from the Green Party in statewide campaigns, successes from the 2016 presidential election, the Democrats in New York inserted into a COVID relief bill, a law that tripled the amount of signatures and made it damn near impossible. A number of signatures no parties could collected in New York, and I believe recorded history. And I want to say only once or twice in the last century has any third party candidate gotten enough votes to qualify under the new law, right? So while it does seem to be antithetical to what we are talking about, I think the prophetic nature of Emma Goldman's quote is something that we should remember, because power is sequestered there, and when we are able to actually threaten it, they do make it illegal. In Illinois, even if you run for office in Illinois, in that packet that you have to fill out to run is a loyalty oath that swears you're not a member of a communist party. Now, that loyalty oath has been declared by the Supreme Court to be null and void. You don't have to fill it out, right? You don't have to turn it in. You don't have to mess with it, but it's in there. And I bet you a lot of candidates do still fill it out. So I think it's important to remember when we have this conversation that, it does present an avenue that real challenges to power can happen. And it does, they tend to make it illegal.
Yeah.
Or restrict it.
Yeah, that was always kind of the I don't know if ironic is the right word, but the different way that I would see this, because you're right, a lot of folks will throw it around as sort of a justification for I shouldn't be involved in electoralism. But really, it's kind of the opposite, that voting, and maybe not the act of voting by itself, but the act of organizing independent politics, of organizing for issues and organizing for candidates that will support those issues and all, is where the power is. And whenever that starts to form is when you start to see restrictions on elections and the voting process. When candidates run together, we refer to that as a ticket. And in history, it was a ticket because you would literally cut out a ticket, like a coupon from like a newspaper or something. You'd say, hey, I like these candidates in the ad, and I'm going to vote for them. And you would drop that ticket into the voting booth and things like that. And because of various reasons here, for one thing, there could have been like fraud and things like that. But one way that you suppress independent candidates and all is by putting in all of these state barriers to getting on the ballot. And you have the state control who's on the ballot, and you have the state control who's allowed to vote and who's registered to vote, and all of these things. So they keep putting these restrictions on there over time that almost make it illegal, or at least almost make it illegal to vote for anything but the folks that are already in power. So in some sense, it actually confirms this, that voting and organizing the vote, and really, like I said, broadly organizing independent politics is something that can be very threatening to power, which is why they try to restrict it so much and restrict the conversation by making it harder to vote and convincing you that, oh, it's just a spoiler and it doesn't matter, and all this stuff, right? So we should consider it how useful it is to use electoralism both to push our own power in legislative ways, but also to organize our forces, like Marx was talking about, and to put our message out to the public, and use it as a platform to educate others about the changes that society really needs to get to where we need to go. Green socialism and the Green Party are about more than just electoralism. It's an activist organization too, as we've said in previous 101s, and we'll talk about more as we go.